The first flicker of trouble entered Oberyn Greenland's life on a lamplit autumn evening in the Crooked Stoat, a smoke-wreathed tavern whose rafters rang nightly with song and dice. Oberyn, self-proclaimed Bard Laureate of the Western Roads, finished strumming his ballad about King Baron's third cousin's goose, raised one finger, inhaled with priest-like solemnity, and let the silence dangle. His audience leaned forward, a log cracked in the hearth, someone coughed. The serving wench stopped mid-pour so ale splashed her boots. 10 full heartbeats waddled by. Then 20, when Oberyn finally uttered the next line, and thus the poultry of destiny crowed, there was a collective groan loud enough to startle the resident cat off a windowsill. The innkeeper, a chest-wide woman named Mother Stoat, slung her dishcloth like a slingstone. "Greenland, you overboiled turnip, you just paused longer than a winter night out." "But madam," Oberyn objected, raising 2 airy hands, "a strategic lull augments dramatic anticipation. It augments my customer's thirst for murder." She pointed to the door. "Begone." Oberyn bowed, gathered his lute, and exited with the wounded dignity of a goose that believed itself a swan. It was not the first tavern that week to exile him, nor the 7th that season. The charges were identical. Loitering pauses, suspenseful silences, and breathless gaps, so broad a mule train could camp inside. Squeezebox Sam of the Gaping Goat had dubbed him Sir Drumroll without the drum. Rumors spread from village to village that time itself lagged behind when Oberyn performed. Winter descended. One by one, the taprooms closed their doors at the sight of his green cloak. His coin purse thinned. Even his lute and ordinary walnut-backed instrument named Dulcibel seemed to strum with reproach. On the solstice, he found himself seated alone on a frost-caked milestone, wondering how a man renowned for words could be undone by silence. A gust rattled bare branches above. "Well," he muttered, "perhaps the problem is not the pause, but the expectation of poetry afterwards. What if I trimmed the poetry to nubs, left only the laughter?" The notion glimmered like spark glass in moonlight. Minstrels sang, jesters juggled, fools cartwheeled, but no traveling soul stood simply to hurl jests at the crowd without music, mask, or capering. What if Oberyn, disgraced bard, became something new? A standing jokester, a one-man farce, a stand-up. He tried the phrase aloud. Stand-up. It tasted crisp, like a fresh apple. To test the idea, he trudged toward Kingfisher Crossing, where the frost fair packed onlookers around fire barrels. At its fringes stood the Misrule platform, a makeshift stage where jugglers auditioned for Lord Hesper's winter revel. Oberyn climbed the planks, announced himself as Oberyn the Upright, and began flinging jokes at passers-by. "My lord, you look cold enough to freeze the debts off a moneylender," he declared to a fur-cloaked noble. When the man laughed, coins pattered into Oberyn's hat. He followed with quips, puns, and merry slanders, keeping words rapid so no deadly pause could bloom. People clustered nearer, shoulder to shoulder, spurring him hotter. By dusk his hat bulged. He left giddy, pockets jingling. Yet beneath the euphoria gnawed doubt. Improvisation was fragile, and audiences fickle as March geese. He required sharper weaponry, wordplay honed to a dueling edge, delivered without delay, yet paced enough to let laughter breathe. He trudged to a pawnshop to trade Dulcibel for parchment, but paused. Parting with his lute felt like abandoning a limb. While he wavered, a voice drawled from the shelf. "Before you desert me for blank paper, consider this. You'd be 10 jokes poorer and 1 idiot richer." Oberyn whirled. His lute's rosette glowed faintly. The tuning pegs twisted like articulating shoulders. "Did you speak?" "Yes, though whether your ears are worthy is open to debate," said Dulcibel. Her strings thrummed sarcastic arpeggios. "You spend months creating voids of silence, yet never notice an instrument groaning to be heard. Typical ego." Lutes, it must be noted, do not typically berate their owners. But magic hangs around desperation like mist, and somewhere between exile and rebirth, Oberyn's longing must have seeped into spruce and gut, awakening consciousness. Once his initial shock cooled, excitement bloomed. If you can talk, you can critique. Aid me. I'm forging a new art, half jest, half ballad. Sweet gods, no, Dulcibel groaned. Though if tormenting ears is your destiny, I might as well officiate. Consider me your reluctant judge. Thus was formed an unlikely partnership, a stand-up pioneer and a sardonic talking lute who critiqued every syllable. They traveled perfecting an act where Oberon delivered rapid jokes while Dulcibel offered sniping commentary between them. In the town of Thistlebridge, he tried, "Why did the baker's ghost haunt the oven?" Dulcibel cut the air with a disdainful chord. "Let me guess, because the punchline is half-baked." The crowds roared at their bickering duet. Word spread along trade roads until rumors reached the Scarlet Court, whose resident jesters prided themselves on unmatched wit. Stung by talk of an upstart stand-up, they sent a parchment challenge: present yourself at the Royal Foolery Festival, compete in pun duels, or forever be branded cowardly cabbage. Auburn's pulse quickened. Victory could legitimize his craft, defeat could fling him back to the milestone. Dulcibel merely sighed. "Very well, cabbage, let us meet the salad." The festival unfurled beneath pennants of riotous hue on the palace green. Bleachers rose like wooden amphitheaters. At center stood the pun pit, a circular platform ringed by jesters in motley. There was Hob Indigo, laureate of rhyming insults, Sister Snickers, nun garbed in parchment scrolls, and most daunting, Lord Quipthorne, the king's seasoned fool whose scepter wore a tiny cap. Announcements blared from a crier. Contestants would duel in rounds. A topic would be shouted. Duelists must volley puns until one stumbled, repeated himself, or was booed off stage. Director Dulcibel, perched on a tripod, had been appointed arbiter for Oberon's matches. Her acerbic neutrality pleased the organizers. Round one pitted Oberon against Mop Merriweather, a jester famed for hat tricks. The topic: fish. Mop bowed and began, "Why are fish terrible secret keepers?" "Because their lips are sealed." Laughter rippled. Oberon retorted, "A school of fish got bad grades, they spent all term fluking." And they reeled, soulful jokes, eel-vective representatives, perching on success. When Mop hesitated, searching for fresh bait, Dulcibel twanged a sharp minor chord. "Hesitation," she declared. Oberon advances. Backstage, Hob Indigo snorted, "Enjoy your minnow victory. Next you face me, and I shall rhyme you into mime." Before round two, Dulcibel coached, "Rhymers weaponize rhythm, break their meter with unpredictable cadence. Also, avoid fruit rhymes, they will have pears." The topic was birds. Hob opened. "The eagle married a sparrow called that a fledgling relation." Oberon shot back, "Raven owed money, he's under claw lateral." They soared through winged wordplay until Hob produced, "Cockatoo took a poem class, came out a polysyllabic verse." The audience whooped. Oberon inhaled, mind racing. He glimpsed Mother Stoat in the crowd. Her glare reminded him of the fatal pause he'd once nursed. Instincts said fill the silence, but memory warned him not to choke. Seconds stretched. Dulcibel's peg clicked, a subtle metronome. She did not intercede. This was Oberon's crucible. He steadied breath, let one heartbeat pass, just enough tension, then declared, "Heron opened a tavern PC drinks, but people keep egg-routine their budget." The pun was groan-worthy perfection. Hob faltered, repeating, talon tinted twice. Dulcibel sounded victory. After that, the crowd chanted Oberon's name. Even Sister Snickers crossed herself in jesting respect. Only Lord Quipthorne remained, waiting like a golden spider amid tangled mirth. Rumor claimed he once pun-dueled the high priest of lexicon and left the man speaking only in palindromes. The final match would occur at sunset, before the king himself. The topic would remain unknown until announced. Aubrey paced his dressing tent, stomach knotted. Dulcibel lay across a stool, strings gleaming. "Your heartbeat is louder than your jokes. Relax." "I am about to duel the realm's sharpest tongue," he hissed. "A man who chews rhetoric like sugarcane? Then floss him with surprise," Dulcibel advised. She angled her sound hole toward him conspiratorially. "Use what only you possess, that damnable pause, the defect that birthed your exile." Turn it into a blade, he considered. Silence as weapon. He'd trained months to avoid gaps. Now he must conjure one, deliberate, precise. Dusk painted the sky violet as heralds escorted Aubrey and a Lord Quipthorne onto the pun pit. Quipthorne bowed with languid arrogance. His motley bells chimed like small, smug thoughts. The royal crier unfurled the parchment. Final topic, cheese! Gasps, chuckles, and a few groans fluttered. Cheese was fertile pond soil, but quick to sour into cliches. Quipthorne let out a theatrical sigh. At least it will be easy, Bree. Laughter pealed. Auburn saluted, plastered a grin. The duel commenced. Quipthorne began rapid-fire Gouda/Gouda, Cheddar/Header, Stilton/Stilton. Auburn countered with Ricotta/Ricotta, Halloumi/Halloumi, Gorgonzola/Gorgonzola. Cheers battled booze, each pun twist raising stakes. Midway, Quipthorne loosed a barb. This contest is hardly fair, for I can and bear the weight of real wit, while you just fed around. The crowd roared allegiance. Aubaron's riposte, if your arrogance were a dairy, it would be a beely vein of mold. He scored laughs, but Quipthorne matched with, your jokes are like skim milk, pale thin and better left for pigs. They danced language like blades. Sweat prickled Aubaron's brow. He sensed the duel nearing stalemate. Remember Dulcibel's counsel. Silence. He waited for Quipthorne's next lunge. The jester puffed. Face it, Greencloak. Your humor is so soft I could spread it on toast. Oberyn's mouth opened, then stopped. He fixed Quipthorne with an inscrutable smile and folded his arms. Nothing issued. The tables turned. A deliberate pause, yet not drawn to desert dryness, just long enough to make spectators shift, anticipate. Quipthorne's smirk dimmed. He waggled eyebrows, expecting an interruption. Oberyn remained statue still. 5 heartbeats. 6. Quipthorne cleared his throat, uneasy. Laughter tittered in the stands. Not at Oberyn, but at the jester's sudden insecurity. At the 9th heartbeat, Oberyn spoke softly. You mistake softness for versatility. Everybody loves a good spread, but you, my friend, are too hard to stomach indeed. You're the greatest irritation. A cheer ruled across the green. Before Quipthorne could retort, Auburn added seamlessly, and despite your claim, you can bear no further insults, for you have rinned out of ideas. Quipthorne's mouth worked soundlessly. He repeated, rind, seeking a comeback. The rules strictly forbade repetition. Dulcibel thrummed a triumphant chord. Echo without substance. Point to Auburn. The bleachers erupted. Auburn bowed, heart galloping with exultation. King Aldwin clapped until rings clattered. Trumpets blared. Oberyn Greenland, first champion of stand-up, had bested the kingdom's jesters. After ceremony, Quipthorne approached, subdued. Well played. Your paws unexpectedly sharp. He offered a signet-shaped toffee as truce. Oberyn accepted. Word of the victory spread farther than any ballad Oberyn had sung. Tonight, only the pause that slays Oberyn the stand-up. Crowds filled benches. Yet Oberyn did not hurry his return. Success had refined his ambition. He wished not merely to perform, but to found a guild of upright humorists, so others might craft laughter without lute or juggling. He and Dulcibel journeyed, hosting open pauldron nights beneath straw hat lanterns. They taught novices the alchemy of timing, the quick jab, the measured breath, the silence that primed and the word that detonated. Dulcibel's sarcasm spared no tender ego. When a fledgling comic attempted a donkey joke ending with asinine, she twanged, if wit were wine, yours would be water served warm. Some quit in tears, those who endured improved. Within months, small throngs of stand-uppers trickled across the realm, battling jesters in friendly rivalry. Diversity blossomed. Tala Quickstep specialized in herbal puns, Brindle the Smith full of forge humor. Even Mother State's youngest barmaid tried a routine about ale froth and fickle suitors. Oberyn wept discreetly with pride. Yet not all responded warmly. Traditional minstrels accuse stand-uppers of eroding lyrical arts. A pamphlet titled The Decline of Decorum, Upright Buffoons and Their Poisoned Pauses circulated. Debates raged in guild halls. On a spring dawn, Auberon attended a symposium at the University of Eloquent Arts, where scholars and minstrels faced stand-uppers across an oak dais. The chief historian sneered, "Is brevity now the soul of all art? Must poetry bow before quips?" Auberon approached the lectern with Dulcibel slung across his back. "Friends," he began, "poetry needs no bow. She already dances. Humor simply offers percussion." He paused, letting murmurs swirl. "Centuries hence, ballads and mirth may mingle like wine and water, each enhancing the other's savor. Our land will be richer when every voice finds a stage, whether strumming couplets or timing punchlines." Dulcibel echoed with a warm chord. The hall prepared to snipe instead fell thoughtful. The historian stroked his beard. "Perhaps. The boy has a point. Not victory, but possibility." Later, Auberon sat beneath blooming cherry trees, watching petals drift. Dulcibel rested on his lap. "Do you think they will ever stop arguing?" he asked. She hummed. "Art argues with itself the way waves argue with shorelines, through continual change. Your stand-up is a new tide, except the foam." He laughed. "I suppose I owe you thanks, friend. Had you not mocked me, I'd still believe silence a curse." She snorted. "Sentimentality, spare me. If you must repay, restring me with silk, not this coarse gut." He promised he would. Seasons tumbled. Stand-up nights lit towns like campfires of shared laughter. Crowds huddled, strangers slapping backs. The Pundul became an annual festival, attracting delegations from distant duchies. In its third year, a jester from Cathay displayed acrobatic satire. In the fifth, a northern skald wove ice jokes into sagas. Each time, Auberon judged with measured pause, proving silence need not be emptiness but the canvas on which words burst bright. Late one summer, Auberon returned to the Crooked Stoat, the very tavern of his first banishment. Mother Stoat squinted as he crossed the threshold. A hush fell, mugs froze mid-air. He removed his hat, bowed. "Madam," he said, "once you cast me out for pausing. Might I pause here again? This time for applause rather than outrage." Wrinkles around her eyes softened. "If the audience riots, I'll flay you with my dishcloth." "A fair contract," he agreed, stepping onto the low stage. He surveyed the faces, farmhands, trappers, merchants, a group of dusty travelers from who knew where. Dulcibel's strings shimmered. Auberon opened his mouth, then deliberately, knowingly, gloriously waited. 2 heartbeats. 3. A hush deepened. He felt the hush, not as chasm, but as taut bowstring. Then, gently, "So, a goose walks into a bar. The bartender says, 'Why the long pause?'" He lifted his hands, flexed his fingers as though they were a goose's webbed feet. The crowd realized simultaneously. Laughter erupted so hard tankards sloshed. Dulcibel rolled her eyes but strummed a sparkling run all the same. And in that resonant room, where once silence had exiled him, Auberon Greenglen reveled in the knowledge that a pause, rightly placed, could carry an entire world on its breath.